Hi everybody, this is Angie from Tourangie.com, and today's video is dedicated specifically to John Forbes Nash Jr. Here in Bluefield, West Virginia. We will discuss all of his history and different things as I drive around the city showing you sights of his childhood basically. We are starting this video here on During Street. To the right is a church, and there is a plaque on the side of the church that mentions John Forbes Nash Jr. attending here. But this was his church, and this is the Christ Episcopal Church. Now, up here on the left is where his grandparents lived. This White House that's on the left. Once I get up to the top of this hill, I'm turning around and you'll be able to see it better. But that's where his grandparents lived. The James Everett Martin House, J.E. Martin. James Everett Martin was one of the first mayors of Bluefield. He was also one of the founders of St. Luke's Hospital, and he ran his medical practice out of his house. This is on the maternal side of John Nash Jr. His father's side of the family was not in Bluefield, but this is his mother's side, the Martin side of his family. In fact, his mother, Virginia Martin, was married right here at this house in the parlor in 1924 to John Nash Sr. One of the things that's interesting is this is actually, the writing about this house is actually in his memoirs and autobiographical essay. So I think that's pretty neat. Now, right up back there where I turned around, it's a big, large parking lot area. Well, back in the day, that used to not be a parking lot. It crosses over onto the main area of Bluefield, but you can get to it by turning right up beside Ramsey School. That same area is where the old Bluefield Sanitarium Hospital was, and that was where John Nash was born. He was born on June 13th, 1928. Now, of course, I said it was a parking lot because it is a parking lot now. The Bluefield Sanitarium was tore down many, many years ago. In fact, I have a funny personal story there. When my mom told me she was born at Bluefield Sanitarium and drove up by there when I was a child, I thought that meant that she was born in a parking lot. That's how I thought it was, that she was just born in a parking lot. But anywho, that's a whole nother story. Let's get back to John Nash. Right now we're on Rogers Street. We've passed by the police station and different things. We'll be taking a left. Well, not quite yet. We're going to go past this stop sign, but past this old church, we'll be taking a left. And I think it's called Hoge Street, Hoge Street. And that will take us up the hill to 3rd Street, where the school is actually located on. This is the old Beaver High School. You can see a little bit of it right here. And I'm going to circle in front of the school, which is on 3rd Street. And then I'm going to come back down Thomas Street and pull off to the side so I can get a good picture of it for you. Yeah, this is the old Beaver High School, and this is where John Nash Jr. went to school. He graduated from here in 1945, and at the time of his graduation, he had received 18 college credits from Bluefield College, which will be at the last bit of this video that I make today. So to graduate in 1945 with 18 college credits, that's pretty amazing. So that proves that he was a very, very smart man. A few years after his graduation, I'm thinking maybe around 10 years after his graduation, this school became Central Middle School, or Central Junior High School back in the day, as the high school was built up on Cumberland Road. But I have that on another video, and I can't exactly remember the dates when the school was moved from being the old Beaver High School to becoming Central Junior High. As I'm continuing this drive, I'm going to read to you about John Nash and his life and history and different things. There's not really much I can point out. Just, you'll get to see the city, the downtown area of Bluefield as I drive by, and different things. So I'm just basically going to be reading stuff from Wikipedia and different websites that I've used to find information. John Forbes Nash Jr., of course, his father was John Forbes Nash Sr. He was an electrical engineer for Appalachian Electric Power Company, and his mother, Margaret Virginia Nash Martin, was a school teacher. Nash attended kindergarten and public schools and learned from books provided by his parents and grandparents. Nash's parents pursued opportunities to supplement their son's education by arranging for him to take advanced mathematics courses at Bluefield College, which is now Bluefield University, and during his final year of high school, he attended Carnegie Institute of Technology, which later became the Carnegie Mellon University, with a full benefit from the George Westinghouse Scholarship. Initially majoring in chemical engineering, he switched to chemistry major and eventually, at the advice of a school teacher, John Lightenstein, to mathematics. After graduating in 1948 with both a BS and an MS in mathematics, Nash accepted a fellowship at Princeton University, where he pursued further graduate studies in mathematics and science. The last road back there that cut up to the right, that would take you by the old Ramsey School. That is to the right of the Ramsey School was where I had mentioned there was the parking lot. That's where the old Bluefield Sanitarium was, where John Nash was born. John Nash's former college advisor and professor, Richard Dunfin, wrote a letter for the recommendation of Nash's entrance into Princeton, stating he is a mathematical genius. Nash was also accepted into Harvard University. However, the chairman of mathematics department at Princeton offered John S. Kennedy fellowship, convincing Nash that Princeton valued him more. Further, he considered Princeton more favorable because of the proximity to Bluefield. At Princeton, he began to work on his equilibrium theory, later known as the Nash equilibrium. I thought it was funny that he chose Princeton University over Harvard because of the location. I mean, that's still New Jersey, so that was still a very good distance away from Bluefield. But, like, Harvard was in Massachusetts near Boston, so it was at least a little bit closer. John Nash did come back to Bluefield some, probably not as much as he wanted to, if that was one of the reasons why he picked Princeton University in New Jersey as its proximity to Bluefield. But he did come back to Bluefield. In fact, one of our next stops will be one of the places that he stayed at while in Bluefield, and that's the Bluefield Inn. Now, right now, we're on Bland Road, and we're stopping at this red light and taking a right onto College Avenue. And College Avenue is the main thoroughfare, I guess, basically, of houses. It's a really popular street here in Bluefield. But I found one instance where it said that the Nash family home was at 408 College Avenue. And this is the home, I believe, that he stayed in as a child before moving to Whitethorn. So I'm not going down there, but it's about 1 block down from this point. We're taking a left on Jefferson, and I'm going to drive up the hill and stop in front of the Bluefield Inn to take a picture of it, so you'll get to see the Bluefield Inn. When he came back to Bluefield, he'd stay at the Bluefield Inn, and there has been many famous people to have stayed here too. The Bluefield Inn is a 6,000 square foot southern mansion. And some of the history about it, it was constructed by Mr. Holland in 1904 for his bride-to-be, Nancy. The couple got married and lived here for less than 2 years when Mrs. Holland passed away. The house passed through several prominent families during that time. The Comptons, the Maynards. It became an elementary school for a little while, and then Miss Helen Ryan purchased the home, her and her husband, in 1938, converting the second floor rooms for a boarding house and accommodations. During this time, President Woodrow Wilson visited during his candidacy and enjoyed the hospitality there. JFK was noted as visiting too. So there's been several people to have stayed there that were really significant to history. So I just wanted to mention that as we're talking about it. But it's also been known as the Diane Lee House. So we're going to continue on and start talking about John Nash again. I just wanted to mention the Bluefield Inn. If you're in Bluefield, that would be the place to stay because it's wonderful, wonderful place. So anyway, back to John Nash. We are now taking a right onto Cumberland Road, and this will take us past many streets that cut to the left where there are tons of houses. And many houses in this area are on the National Registry of Historic Places. There are tons of historic homes in this area. We're also going to be passing by the Bluefield High School, which is still the same high school today. That this is the one that replaced the old Beaver High School I showed earlier in the video. Anyway, we will eventually be coming down to Maryland Avenue where I'll be taking a right, and then I will take a left onto Whitethorn Street to show you where John Nash lived as an older child, since I only found that one piece of evidence that said he was a younger child at 408 College Avenue. I'm going to show you where he really grew up at, and that is on the Whitethorn Street, and it's a nice little house. Nash did not publish extensively, although many of his papers are considered to be landmarks in their field. As a graduate student at Princeton, he made foundational contributions to game theory and real algebraic geometry. As a postdoctoral fellow at MIT, Nash turned to differential geometry. There is so much I could talk about his achievements in mathematics because he was a genius. But I wanted to touch on a few other things about his life because with the genius that he was in math, he did suffer from mental illness. In fact, it first formed as paranoia. His wife later described his behavior as erratic. Nash thought that the men who wore red ties were part of the communist conspiracy against him. He mailed letters to embassies in Washington, D.C., declaring that they were establishing a government. Nash's psychological issues crossed over into his professional life when he gave an American Mathematics Society lecture at Columbia University in 1959. Originally intended to present proof of the Riemann hypothesis, the lecture was incomprehensible, and colleagues in the audience immediately realized that something was wrong. Nash was admitted to McLean Hospital for a month based on his paranoid and delusions, hallucinations, and increasing asociality. He was also diagnosed as a schizophrenic. In 1961, Nash was admitted to the New Jersey State Hospital at Trenton, and over the next 9 years he spent intervals of time in psychiatric hospitals where he received both antipsychotic medicines and insulin shock therapy. Although he sometimes took prescribed medicines, Nash later wrote that he did so only under pressure. According to Nash, the film A Beautiful Mind inaccurately implied he was taking atypical antipsychotics. He attributed the deception to the screenwriter, who was worried about the film encouraging people with mental illness to stop taking their medicines. Nash did not take any medications after 1970, nor was he committed to a hospital ever again. Nash recovered gradually. Encouraged by his then former wife, he lived at home and spent his time in the Princeton mathematics department, where his eccentricities were accepted even though his mental condition was poor. One thing I will mention, in 1951, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, hired Nash, and while under care at a hospital while being there, he began a relationship with Eleanor Steyer, a nurse he met while being admitted as a patient. They had a son, John David Steyer, but Nash left Steyer when she told him about her pregnancy. This was also something that was omitted from the film A Beautiful Mind that came out in 2002. I thought I would share. But right here, I'm on Whitethorn Street, and now you can see the picture of the house that he grew up in, at least in his later years. His early years maybe was College Avenue, but this was the house known to be the John Nash house in Bluefield. So we're turning down Whitethorn Street and we're coming back out onto Maryland, and we're going to jump back on College Avenue to cross over the state line from West Virginia into Virginia, and we're going to end this episode of my driving through Bluefield, basically, at Bluefield College or Bluefield University. And that is where he had taken some of his college credits before he ever graduated high school. So I thought, well, that'll be the perfect place to end this video about John Nash. And John Nash died on May 23rd, 2015. It was actually him and his wife both died in a car accident in New Jersey, Monroe Township. They were returning home from receiving the Abel Prize in Norway. The driver of the taxi cab they were riding in from Newark Airport lost control of the cab and struck a guardrail. Both passengers were ejected and killed. At the time of the death, Nash was a longtime resident of New Jersey, and he was survived by two sons, John Charles Martin Nash, who lived with his parents at the time of their death, and the eldest one was John Steyer. Following the death, obituaries appeared in the scientific and popular media throughout the world, in addition to the obituary for Nash in the New York Times. Published an article containing quotes from Nash that had been assembled from media and other published sources. The quotes consisted of Nash's reflections on life and achievements. His legacy at Princeton University in the 1970s, Nash became known as the Phantom of Fine Hall, a shadowy figure who would scribble arcane equations on blackboards in the middle of the night. He is referred to in a novel set at Princeton, The Mind-Body Problem in 1983 by Rebecca Goldstein. And then, of course, the Sylvia Nassar's biography of Nash, A Beautiful Mind. It was published in 1998, and then the film was released in 2001, and it was directed by Ron Howard with Russell Crowe playing Nash. It won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. In 1978, he won the Inform's John von Neumann Theory Prize. In 1994, he was awarded a prize that I can't pronounce, and I'm not even going to try it to, but it was called the Prize in Economic Science and Memory of Alfred Nobel. In 1999, the Leroy P. Steele Prize for Seminal Contribution to Research. 2002's the class of Fellows of the Institute for Operation Research and Management of Science. In 2010, the Double Helix Medal, and then in 2015, before he died, the Abel Prize. And that was for striking and seminal contributions to the theory of nonlinear particle differential equations and its application to geometric analysis. A brilliant, brilliant man. Two things that I want to also talk about really quickly. John Nash Jr., his father, John Nash Sr., is buried at Monte Vista Cemetery here in Bluefield. And if you're on the road between Bluefield and the Interstate 77, that's called John Nash Boulevard, named after him. So here we are at Bluefield College, now called Bluefield University. Just figured this would be a perfect place to stop the video since he received some college credits here while he was in high school. This is Angie from Tourangie.com. I hope you've enjoyed this video and learned something about John Nash. Talk to you all later.